Gauss nuke builds for a while have been pretty much the same thing. Hit 100% battery, cast heat a few times, cast cold, and profit. But come on guys, you know me. I wouldn't make an entire video just to talk about something that, let me see, 5 other channels have already covered if one, I didn't do it better, or in today's case, perfected it. Let's start with what is a common pain point for Thermal Sunder nuking, the requirement of 100% battery for the full strip on a combination cast of cold and heat from Thermal Sunder in a single rotation. Because Redline's battery scales inversely with duration, the more you build of it, the longer it will take you to hit 100%. To be exact, that is 100% divided by duration times 1/3, so it cannot be maxed out before 1/3 of its duration has passed. With the average build residing around 200% duration, that is 20 seconds where you cannot take full advantage of this, and some go as high as 30 seconds, which in Warframe is a really long time. Remedying this is a very interesting piece of tech that Worm, whose channel is linked down below, first publicized to my knowledge, which uses the Aura corrosive projection to cut down the battery needed to armor strip from 100% not to 82%, but only 2%. Let me explain. Projection removes 18% of enemy armor, and would lead you to believe that now you require 82% on your redline meter to full strip. But it actually allows you to full strip at 96.4% rather than 82. This is because armor strip percentage is dictated not by the entire battery you see here, but only this little percentage above the redline, which is the top 20%. 96.4% is the required amount because that number is 16.4 higher than 80, and because 16.4 is 82% of 20, you get an 82% armor strip. So if none of that math makes sense to you, don't worry, hopefully the gameplay will speak for itself. Activate redline, barely move, and voila, full stripping at, what was that, 2% battery? It essentially does not matter. And even if battery level did matter, we don't even cast Heat Sunder on this build, instead opting for cold casting 99% of the time. Now why would we want to do that? Let me introduce you to another key aspect of Thermal Sunder. Thermal Sunder has 2 casting versions, heat and cold. We all know that. However, if you cast the opposite element of what status already exists on an enemy, say casting cold on an enemy afflicted by heat from either Sunder or anything else, it will condense the damage of both into a single instance of blast damage, and of course armor strip. Do note that the damage is dealt after the armor reduction. Damage here can be calculated by taking the heat proc damage times the remaining proc duration, plus the damage of the cast that condenses everything together. This is typically why most builds have you spam Heat Sunder before condensing it with a cold cast, but those builds fail to take advantage of another very powerful mechanic that Heat has, Heat Inherit. Heat is a damage over time status that has no cap, infinitely stacking as long as you keep applying them, as doing so will refresh the duration of all currently active heat procs. Interestingly though, the very first heat proc applied will dictate the modded heat damage, faction damage, and status duration of all further stacks. Now I know what you're thinking. Kai, you cast cold, which turns all the heat into blast, so what is inheriting the heat? But remember that the equation for said damage contains heat proc damage, which consequently scales off of heat damage bonuses and faction damage bonuses. So it's technically heat inherit, just not with heat. So if our heat damage scales much higher the more heat dots there are on an enemy, then we need a way to apply them fast and within a large area. Unfortunately though, most good priming secondaries cannot satisfy both of those requirements, so I ask you to turn your attention to Quorum, the signature polearm of Archon Boreal. We use Quorum for an incredibly specific reason, but first, melee influence. Influence grants any electric procs that originate from your melee a 20% chance to buff it, which will cause all elemental melee status effects to be spread to every enemy within range, that being 20 meters. This buff will last for 18 seconds, it cannot be refreshed while active, and is the key to quickly spreading multiple statuses, namely heat. Some grouping paired with Quorum's stance Shimmering Blight, which has multiple hits per attack, will spread both heat and viral, our chosen elements, very fast. Heat and viral may seem odd considering we need electric, and that is where Quorum's previously stated incredibly specific reason comes into play. On the forward block attack, you will initiate a custom attack that slams the spearhead into the ground before pulling it out to deal damage within 11 meters. The initial thrust into the ground has a guaranteed electric proc on all hit enemies, with the following explosion only a chance, but importantly, electric is not within the damage makeup of the Quorum, allowing us to build viral and heat to spread through influence. Let's take a look at the Quorum build. Condition overload is no surprise. We spread over 5 statuses in-house and outsource up to 8 more. Faction damage also works incredibly well here, interacting with both influence and heat as a DOT status. Faction damage will double dip on dots, which is normal, but because influence spreads a copy of the already doubled heat dot, it is multiplied again for a very powerful triple dip. Virulent and Vicious for viral and status chance alongside both heat mods to scale the dot damage even higher, and Weeping Wounds to give us a final status chance of 225, guaranteeing 2 statuses per hit and a 25% chance for a third. And finally, another great reason to use Quorum is the mod Boreal's Contempt. This mod multiplies all status damage by 30%. I know it says 60, but the wiki says it's incorrect. This multiplier acts independently of all other things and just serves as the best way to boost our heat dot damage. For Gauss, Corrosive Projection for Armor Strip alongside Umbral Intensify, Augur Secrets, Power Drift, and Multi-Augmented to get the aforementioned strength value necessary for transfer. 207 duration pushes all of our buffs to 62.1 seconds, while 175 range expands the radius on Sunder to 21 meters, which matches almost perfectly with Influence's 20 meters. Only 100% efficiency may seem low for a semi-spammy like build as this, even with Kinetic Plating's energy generation, but due to Spaghetti Code, for whatever reason, Seismic Bond, which gives you 30% efficiency on companion damage while a channeled ability is active, is triggered by Kinetic Plating and Redline. Who knows why? They're not channeled abilities, but I will sure take advantage of it. Speaking of the companion, it is Nautilus for grouping. Who could have thought it? Here is the build. Mine isn't formatted correctly for this specific setup, but I already have 6 in it and don't want to mess up other builds. Pairing Duplex Bond with Hellstrom and Momentous Bond allows fantastic status spread and decent crowd control. Not that you really need it, you already don't take damage anyways. Finally, back on Gauss, we do use Arcane Strike for even more attack speed. I know that Redline is already providing 83% more, but the unique combo that the Quorum has takes 4 seconds to do, and you use it quite frequently to trigger influence, so speeding that up is really nice. Do note that once you have triggered influence, feel free to either cast an ability or roll out of this attack to cancel it early. And there we have it, everyone. Gauss Nuking perfected. Sorry it took me so long to get out this part 2. Decided to take a month-long break, drop a video, and then take another 2-month-long break. I don't know, my bad. A massive thank you to my patrons and YouTube supporters who help keep the lights on in the house I don't own, nor pay the electrical bill for. Also check out my Twitch and Discord link down below. Next is gonna be the homegirl. I'll let y'all figure out who that is. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Peace.